why you should not listen to most videos, Christian videos online. Why you should not watch them or listen to them. There are several reasons, but here's the primary one. The primary reason is that when you do, it will distract you from what you should really be doing. Which is what? Which is living in love with God, with Jesus himself, with the Holy Spirit. That's what we should all be doing, number one, all the time, with all of our hearts, minds, souls, strengths, wills, etc. That's the prime directive. That's the first and greatest commandment. And that's what we should be spending our time doing. So, when we instead spend our time listening to people talk about God, it's a subtle distraction from living in authentic relationship with God. And you might think that, someone might think, anyone, don't mean to point the finger, that simply immersing themselves in teachings and Christian culture fulfills the first and greatest commandment, but it does not. It's a subtle distraction where you're constantly just feeding on what people tell you. Knowledge. What is it? It's knowledge of good and evil. Which did what? Took them away from relationship with God. Even good knowledge. Knowledge of good and knowledge of evil. So, now, there's a place for some of it. I get that some teaching is necessary, right? We know that. Proverbs tells us that we should listen to solid teaching. But that leads us to the second reason that we should not spend all of our time, or too much of our time, listening to Christian teachings online. Because a lot of it, the majority of it, is not solid. Here's one example. So much of it, if you look at the little thumbnail, the little picture that they get to hook you, and the title, whatever wording they put in there, a large majority of it, the large majority of it, gets you by what? By fear. It's just a fact. They'll give you some picture of like people burning in hell. Or they'll scare you with the headline like, it's more serious than you think. Or it's whatever, it's some dire warning that you better watch or else. Why is this a problem? Because that's not God's language. God doesn't speak the language of motivation through fear. The other side does that. In fact, it's their main flipping tactic. So when you see the tactic of the enemy being employed by those who claim to be on our side, what can you infer from this? You can logically conclude that they're not on our side, and they're trying to instill fear in you. Someone might say, well, Jesse, we're supposed to live in the fear of God, and, we got to get it right. We can't sin. We got to get it right. Hell is real. But when God rules the day, love rules the day. Consequences for actions are only a part of love. That's it. But there is no other fear, no other element in God's kingdom and God's reality that even approaches that abject fear of, oh my God, God's going to punish us if we don't get it right. God's language, his primary language, is love because he is love. Where can you find love? Where's the only place to find love? Relationship. That's the only place in all of creation that you can find love, is inside of a relationship. Which brings me back to my first point, which is what we're supposed to be doing with our time and our energy and our focus. So we're supposed to be focused on him. And when you're focused on all these other teachings, And if they're mostly like arguments about theology and doctrine and church practice and yada yada yada. It just goes on and on and on. Constant bickering that's been going on for thousands of years, that if you look at the big picture, does not bear any fruit. What does it do? It just gets you caught up in the argument. You need to rise above the argument itself and realize that getting trapped in the argument is the point, to distract you from the real thing, which is living in love with Him. And inside of that relationship with Him, He'll tell you what you should really be doing to really, truly make some change in this world. Quit spending your time listening to all these people and start listening to Him inside of a loving, authentic, true, real relationship with Him. Thank you, and have a nice day.